Right now, somewhere in this world, a person is lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, wondering why their life feels like a record stuck on repeat. They wake up, go through the motions, return home exhausted, and collapse into bed, only to repeat the same pattern tomorrow. Sound familiar? That person might be sitting in this very room. But here's what that restless soul doesn't realize, and what most people never discover. The human mind is the most powerful force on earth, yet we treat it like a forgotten tool rusting in the basement. We feed our bodies 3 meals a day, but we starve our minds of the nourishment they desperately need to grow, to create, to achieve the impossible. Think about this for a moment. When you were a child, did anyone ever sit you down and teach you how your mind actually works? Did anyone explain that your thoughts shape your reality with the precision of a sculptor's chisel? Of course not. We learn to read, write, and calculate, but we never learn to think deliberately, purposefully, creatively. Every single day you and I are bombarded with roughly 60,000 thoughts. 60,000. And here's the shocking truth. Most of these thoughts are the same ones we had yesterday and the day before and the day before that. We're running on mental autopilot, prisoners of our own habitual thinking patterns. But what if I told you that this very moment, right here, right now, you have the power to change everything? What if the key to achieving anything you've ever dreamed of isn't locked away in some distant place, but sitting right between your ears? The mind, you see, is like a garden. Every thought you plant is a seed. Every emotion you water it with determines whether it grows into a beautiful flower or a choking weed. Most people plant their mental gardens with seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation, then wonder why their lives bear such bitter fruit. Consider the story of a man who worked in a railroad yard. Every day he climbed into refrigerated boxcars to inspect them. One evening he accidentally got locked inside an empty car. He banged on the doors, shouted for help, but the yard was deserted. As the hours passed, he grew colder and colder. On a piece of cardboard, he wrote about his gradual descent into freezing. The next morning, his colleagues found him dead. Here's the remarkable part. The refrigeration unit wasn't even turned on. The temperature inside that car was no different from the mild evening air outside, but his mind, convinced of the cold, had created a reality so vivid that his body responded as if it were true. He literally thought himself to death. This isn't just a tragic story, it's a profound demonstration of the mind's power. If a man can think himself to death, surely you can think yourself to life, to success, to achievement beyond your wildest dreams. But how do we harness this incredible power? How do we train our minds to work for us instead of against us? The first step is understanding that your mind is not you. It's a tool. Just like a hammer doesn't build a house by itself, your mind doesn't create your life automatically. You must pick up this tool and use it with intention, with purpose, with skill. Right now, ask yourself, what am I thinking about most often? What conversations am I having with myself throughout the day? Are these thoughts moving me toward my goals, or are they holding me back? Most people think about what they don't want. They worry about failure, about rejection, about not having enough money, about getting sick, about what others might think. And then they wonder why these very things seem to manifest in their lives. Your mind is like a faithful servant that takes every command literally. When you say, I can't afford that, your mind immediately begins looking for evidence to support this statement. When you say, I'm not good enough, your mind starts collecting proof of your inadequacy. But here's the miracle. When you change the command, the servant changes its mission. When you begin to think, I can find a way, your mind starts searching for solutions. When you declare, I am capable and worthy, your mind begins noticing opportunities and possibilities you never saw before. This isn't positive thinking, this is directed thinking. There's a world of difference between hoping for the best and training your mind to create the best. Let me share with you the story of a woman who cleaned offices at night. Every evening, she would walk through the halls of successful businesses, emptying trash cans and mopping floors. But instead of feeling sorry for herself, she began to observe. She watched how these successful people organized their desks, what books they read, how they spoke to each other. She started asking herself, what do they know that I don't know? She began to feed her mind differently. During her lunch break, she would sit in the company library and read the same business books that lined the executives' shelves. She started thinking like them, talking like them, planning like them. Within 3 years, she had worked her way up to become a supervisor. Within 5 years, she was managing an entire department. Within 10 years, she owned her own cleaning company with dozens of employees. What changed? Her circumstances remained the same for months. Her background didn't change, her education didn't change, but her thinking changed. And that change in thinking gradually transformed everything else. You see, success isn't about where you start, it's about where you direct your mind to go. It's about training your thoughts to focus on solutions rather than problems, on possibilities rather than limitations, on growth rather than stagnation. But here's where most people stumble. They try to change their entire lives overnight. They wake up one morning and decide they're going to think differently about everything. By noon, they're exhausted and defeated, back to their old patterns. The mind, like any muscle, must be trained gradually, consistently, patiently. You wouldn't expect to lift 300 pounds on your first day at the gym, would you? So why do we expect our minds to transform instantly? Start small. Choose one area of your life where you want to see change. Maybe it's your career, your relationships, your health, or your finances. Now, for the next 30 days, commit to spending just 10 minutes each morning thinking about this area in a new way. Instead of thinking about what's wrong with your job, spend those 10 minutes thinking about what skills you could develop to advance your career. Instead of dwelling on what's lacking in your relationships, focus on what you can contribute to make them better. Instead of worrying about your health problems, concentrate on what actions you can take today to feel stronger. This simple practice, 10 minutes of directed thinking each morning, will begin to rewire your mental patterns. Your mind will start to notice things it never noticed before. Opportunities will appear where you once saw only obstacles. Solutions will emerge where you once saw only problems. But training your mind goes beyond positive thinking. It requires you to become the guardian of your mental environment. Just as you wouldn't knowingly drink polluted water, you must stop consuming mental pollution. What are you reading? What programs are you watching? What conversations are you having? Are these inputs feeding your mind with thoughts of growth and possibility, or are they filling it with fear, negativity, and limitation? The average person spends hours each day absorbing news about disasters, scandals, and failures. They listen to friends complain about their problems. They read stories about economic collapse and social decay. Then they wonder why they feel anxious, depressed, and hopeless. Your mind is constantly being programmed by the information you feed it. If you want to achieve great things, you must feed it great thoughts. Read about people who have overcome obstacles. Study the principles that govern success. Surround yourself with individuals who inspire you to grow. Remember, you become what you think about most of the time. If you're thinking about your problems, you'll create more problems. If you're thinking about failure, you'll find ways to fail. But if you're thinking about success, about growth, about contribution, about making a difference, your mind will guide you toward those very things. Think about a farmer preparing his field for planting. He doesn't just throw seeds randomly and hope for the best. He carefully prepares the soil, removes the weeds, plants at the right time, and tends to his crops with patience and persistence. Your mind deserves the same careful cultivation. Every morning when you wake up, you have a fresh opportunity to plant new thoughts, to nurture better habits, to grow stronger beliefs about what's possible for your life. The farmer doesn't expect to see corn stalks the day after planting, and you shouldn't expect instant transformation either. But just as surely as planted seeds grow into a harvest, your consistently directed thoughts will grow into the life you desire. Here's a truth that might surprise you. The most successful people in the world aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who have learned to control their thinking. They've discovered that achievement isn't about having perfect circumstances. It's about having a perfectly trained mind that can find opportunity in any situation. Consider the story of a man who lost his job during the Great Depression. While others stood in bread lines complaining about their misfortune, he walked the streets with a different purpose. He wasn't looking for handouts, he was looking for problems to solve. He noticed that many small businesses were struggling not because they lacked customers, but because they didn't know how to reach them effectively. So he offered to help them with their advertising, taking payment only when their sales improved. Within months, he had created a thriving business helping others succeed. While the economy crumbled around him, his trained mind saw opportunity where others saw only disaster. He understood that crisis and opportunity are often the same event, viewed through different mental lenses. This is the power of a disciplined mind. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions to create something beautiful. It takes whatever raw materials life provides and shapes them into something meaningful. Your current circumstances, no matter how challenging, are simply the clay from which your future will be sculpted. But let me tell you something that might shake you to your core. Most people are living someone else's dream instead of their own. They wake up each morning and step into a life that was designed by their fears, their doubts, their limiting beliefs about what's possible. They've allowed other people's opinions to become their reality, other people's limitations to become their prison. When you were 5 years old, what did you dream of becoming? Do you remember that fearless child who believed anything was possible? What happened to that dreamer? Where did that boundless imagination go? It didn't disappear. It was slowly trained out of you by well-meaning people who had given up on their own dreams. They told you to be realistic, to play it safe, to get a steady job and be grateful for security. They convinced you that dreaming big was foolish, that taking risks was dangerous, that ordinary was acceptable. And slowly, without even realizing it, you began to think smaller, dream smaller, live smaller. But here's what they never told you. Every single thing that makes our world beautiful, every invention that has improved human life, every breakthrough that has pushed humanity forward began as a dream in someone's mind. The Wright brothers didn't listen to the experts who said humans would never fly. The great composers didn't accept that all the good music had already been written. The pioneers didn't believe that the frontier was too dangerous to explore. They trained their minds to see possibilities where others saw impossibilities. They refused to accept the limitations that others tried to place on them. They understood that the only real prison is the one we build in our own minds. So I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, not with your voice, but with your heart. What dream have you been carrying inside you that you've been too afraid to pursue? What vision of your life keeps trying to surface only to be pushed down by doubt and fear? That dream, that vision, that persistent whisper in your soul, that's not just wishful thinking. That's your mind trying to show you what's possible when you train it properly. That's your potential calling to you, begging you to stop settling for less than you're capable of achieving. The tragedy isn't that we dream too big. It's that we've been conditioned to dream too small. We've been taught to lower our expectations, to accept mediocrity, to be satisfied with survival when we were designed for significance. But right now, in this moment, you can choose differently. You can decide that your past doesn't determine your future, that your current circumstances don't define your destiny, that your limitations are not permanent fixtures but temporary obstacles to overcome. The mind that created your current reality is the same mind that can create a completely different one. The only difference is the direction you choose to point it. Are you going to continue letting it wander aimlessly, or are you going to take control and direct it toward the life you truly want? Every great achievement in human history began with someone deciding to think differently. Every breakthrough started with someone refusing to accept the status quo. Every transformation happened because someone chose to train their mind to see beyond what was to what could be. The question isn't whether you have the ability to achieve great things. You do. The question is whether you have the courage to train your mind to believe it, to see it, to pursue it with unwavering determination. Look around this room. Every person sitting here has a unique combination of talents, experiences, and perspectives that has never existed before and will never exist again. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You are not here by coincidence. You are here because you have something special to contribute to this world, something that only you can give. But that contribution will remain locked away forever if you don't train your mind to unlock it. Your gifts will remain buried if you don't develop the mental strength to dig them up. Your potential will remain unrealized if you don't have the courage to think beyond your current limitations. The world needs what you have to offer. It needs your unique perspective, your creative solutions, your particular way of seeing and solving problems. But it can't benefit from your gifts if you keep them hidden behind walls of self-doubt and fear. So ask yourself, how long will you wait? How many more days will you let pass before you decide to take control of your mind and create the life you were meant to live? How many more years will you spend wondering what if, instead of discovering what is. The time for waiting is over. The time for excuses has passed. The time for transformation is now. So ask yourself this question and answer it honestly. Are you willing to spend the same amount of time training your mind as you spend training your body? Are you ready to become as intentional about your thoughts as you are about your diet? The choice is yours. You can continue to let your mind run wild, thinking whatever thoughts happen to wander through it, or you can take control, train it, direct it, and use it to create the life you've always dreamed of living. Your mind is waiting for your command. What will you tell it to create today?